Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to move through life with an almost magnetic quality? Opportunities find them. The right people appear at precisely the right moment. Obstacles that would stop most people in their tracks simply dissolve before they even arrive. It's as if reality itself is conspiring in their favor, bending and reshaping to accommodate their deepest intentions. Now, what if I told you this isn't luck, privilege, or some mystical gift bestowed upon a chosen few? What if this phenomenon operates according to precise psychological and energetic principles that Carl Jung spent decades mapping, principles that anyone can learn to access and embody? What you're about to discover might challenge everything you think you know about manifestation and vibration. Because the secret to making reality align with your intentions has nothing to do with forcing positive thoughts, repeating affirmations in the mirror, or pretending everything is perfect when your life feels like it's crumbling. In fact, those very approaches might be the invisible chains keeping you locked at a lower frequency than you realize. The truth is that high vibration, the kind that actually reorganizes reality around you, operates on principles that are simultaneously deeply spiritual and remarkably scientific. And Jung's exploration of the psyche reveals exactly why some people naturally attain this state while others struggle endlessly despite their best efforts. Let's talk about what's really happening when your vibration reaches those elevated frequencies where synchronicities multiply and reality becomes responsive to your inner state. Has this ever happened to you? You wake up one morning and something feels different. There's a clarity you can't quite explain, a sense of alignment that wasn't there yesterday. And then throughout that day, everything flows. The email you needed arrives within minutes of thinking about it. A conversation reveals the exact solution you've been searching for. A door you thought was closed suddenly opens. The person you needed to connect with reaches out unprompted. This isn't wishful thinking, and it's certainly not coincidence. It's the direct, measurable result of your consciousness operating at a frequency that harmonizes with the deeper patterns governing how reality actually functions. Stay with me here, because understanding this completely transforms how you approach the entire concept of vibrational alignment. Carl Jung identified what he called the collective unconscious, a unified field of archetypal patterns and primordial images that exists beneath our individual awareness. His research revealed that this field is not just some abstract psychological concept floating in theory. It's an active, living matrix of information that shapes how we perceive, interpret, and experience reality itself. And here's the critical insight. The way your personal consciousness interacts with this deeper field determines everything. What opportunities become visible to you, what solutions suddenly appear obvious, what people cross your path, what possibilities emerge in your life that were always there but completely invisible until your frequency shifted. This isn't metaphysical speculation. Jung documented thousands of cases demonstrating that when someone's inner psychological state transforms, their outer circumstances reorganize in ways that defy conventional explanations. When most people think about raising their vibration, they imagine it's simply about cultivating positive emotions, joy, gratitude, love, enthusiasm. And while those elevated emotional states certainly matter, they're actually the effect, not the cause. They're symptoms of something operating at a much deeper level. The real foundation of sustained high vibration lies in a place where your consciousness expands beyond the limited perceptions of your conditioned mind and begins to align with archetypal patterns that have been shaping human experience since the dawn of consciousness itself. Jung discovered what he called the individuation process, a natural movement towards psychological wholeness that represents humanity's evolutionary trajectory. At the lowest levels of this spectrum, consciousness remains fragmented, identified with the persona, the mask we show the world, and dominated by the shadow, the rejected and repressed aspects of ourselves. People operating at these frequencies experience reality as hostile, unpredictable, and resistant to their will. They feel powerless, victimized by circumstances beyond their control. But as consciousness moves through this spectrum toward integration, something remarkable happens. The individual begins to access what Jung called the self with a capital S, the deeper organizing center of the psyche that exists beyond ego identification. This isn't spiritual luxury or fantasy. This is an evolutionary necessity that determines whether you remain trapped in reactive patterns or gain the capacity to consciously shape your experience of reality. And here's where most people get completely confused about vibrational alignment. They've been taught that it's all about maintaining positive emotions no matter what, staying in a good mood, thinking happy thoughts constantly. So they try to force themselves into states of gratitude, even when everything inside them screams resistance. They paste smiles on their faces while suppressing anger, fear, or grief. They repeat affirmations until their voices crack, hoping that if they just believe hard enough, reality will shift. Has this ever happened to you? You try so hard to stay positive that you end up feeling even worse, like you're failing at something that should be natural and effortless. That's because you've been given incomplete information about how consciousness actually operates. The real determinant of your vibrational frequency isn't your surface emotions at all. Your emotions are messengers, indicators, effects of something much deeper. What's actually creating your frequency is your psychological state itself, shaped by the invisible architecture of complexes, unconscious beliefs, shadow material, and the degree to which you've integrated or rejected aspects of your total being. These inner structures function like a lens that filters everything you perceive. They determine what you notice, what meaning you assign to events, what decisions you make in critical moments, and ultimately what patterns keep manifesting in your external reality over and over again. So if it's not about forcing positive emotions, what's the actual pathway to the kind of high vibration that makes reality align? Here's where we get into something that requires complete honesty with yourself, the kind of radical honesty that most people avoid because it demands confronting what Jung called the shadow. The non-negotiable first step is identifying exactly where you are right now psychologically, not where you wish you were, not where you tell others you are, not the image you project, but where you actually are in this precise moment, including the parts you've been hiding from yourself. This identification goes far beyond noticing whether you feel happy or sad today. When a challenge arises, do you immediately project blame outward, searching for who or what is responsible for your discomfort? Or do you turn inward first, asking what this situation reflects about your own unconscious patterns? When success comes your way, do you feel genuinely worthy of receiving it? Or does some voice inside whisper that it's too good to be true, that you don't deserve it, that it will be taken away? When you're alone with your thoughts, what emotional patterns dominate? Fear that the future will collapse, resentment toward those who seem to have what you want, resignation that nothing ever works out, or curiosity about what wants to emerge through you. These aren't just random personality quirks. They're precise indicators of your current relationship with the collective unconscious, revealing exactly where psychological integration is needed. But here's the hidden truth that almost nobody talks about, and it's probably the most liberating thing you'll hear. The belief that you must only have good vibes is actually trapping you at lower frequencies while making you believe you're spiritually evolved. I know this might sound contradictory, but stay with me because this revelation changes everything. When you adopt the rule that you must feel positive all the time to maintain high vibration, you've just created an impossible standard that guarantees failure. And what happens when you inevitably feel sadness, anger, jealousy, or fear? You add a layer of guilt and shame on top of the original emotion. You judge yourself for feeling what you're feeling, which creates massive internal resistance. And that resistance, that war against parts of yourself, is what actually lowers your frequency, not the original emotion itself. The universe doesn't operate on a fixed state of permanent bliss. Everything in existence moves in cycles and rhythms. Day becomes night, the seasons change, the tide rises and falls. This is the hermetic principle of rhythm that Jung understood deeply. He recognized that attempting to stay fixed at one emotional extreme creates enormous psychological tension and fragmentation. True high vibration isn't about denying half of the human experience. It's about developing a consciousness that can hold space for all emotions without being dominated by them, without losing your center, without fragmenting your psyche into acceptable and unacceptable parts. Now I want to show you something that bridges the gap between everything we've been discussing and what actually happens in the physical brain and nervous system when your consciousness expands. Because here's what's truly extraordinary. This isn't just philosophy or abstract psychology. Modern neuroscience is beginning to confirm what Jung intuited decades ago. The quantum realm has revealed that the solid, fixed world we think we're living in is actually mostly empty space and vibrating energy. At the atomic level, the boundary between your body and the environment essentially dissolves. We're discovering that consciousness itself may be fundamental to reality, not merely an emergent property of matter. Science is beginning to confirm what ancient wisdom traditions have taught for millennia. Your thoughts, emotions, and psychological states don't just happen in some isolated chamber inside your skull. They influence the electromagnetic field generated by your heart, alter the chemistry of every cell in your body, and according to Jung's concept of synchronicity, somehow interact with the field of reality itself in ways that transcend classical cause and effect. You're not just changing how you feel when you transform your psychological state. You're literally altering the information field through which you perceive and interact with reality. Your brain physically rewires through neuroplasticity. Your nervous system recalibrates. The very lens through which you filter reality reconstructs itself. And this brings us to perhaps the most profound shift possible in human consciousness. The moment when you realize that everything you've been calling I is not actually who you are in totality. Jung called this the ego, the conscious thinking self that identifies with your personal history, your wounds, your achievements, your beliefs, your need to be right or look good or stay safe. The ego isn't your enemy, but it is a severely limited fragment of what you actually are. The real turning point happens when you can step back and observe this ego structure without being completely identified with it, without believing that this temporary construct is the totality of your being. Here's a question that can change everything. When you feel frustrated, who is it that feels frustrated? When you notice a thought passing through your mind, who is the one noticing? There's the frustration, and then there's the awareness of the frustration. There's the thought, and then there's the consciousness observing the thought. Which one is really you? Jung pointed to what he called the self, the deeper organizing center of the psyche that transcends ego identification. This is the space in which all psychological content arises and falls away. And accessing this observer perspective represents the fundamental shift that elevates your vibration instantly, because you're no longer trapped in the drama of ego stories and reactive patterns. Here's where the practical impact of everything we've discussed becomes crystal clear. When a dense emotion arises, let's say anxiety about a decision you need to make, you have a choice in how you relate to it. The old pattern, the unconscious pattern, is immediate identification. I am anxious. This anxiety defines who I am right now. I need to eliminate this feeling as quickly as possible because it's unbearable. And in that identification, you've just collapsed your consciousness down to the level of the emotion itself, which means you're now vibrating at the frequency of anxiety, completely merged with it. But there's another way, and this is where Jung's psychology becomes immediately practical. You notice the anxiety arising, and instead of collapsing into it, you create a tiny space of awareness. You say internally, there is anxiety present in my experience right now. Do you feel the difference in those words? You haven't denied the emotion or pretended it isn't there, but you also haven't confused it with your total identity. This simple shift in relationship represents a quantum leap in consciousness. Then comes the next crucial step, what Jung would call shadow integration. You welcome the anxiety without judgment, with genuine curiosity. You ask, what is this anxiety trying to protect me from? What deeper fear or unmet need does it point toward? What part of my shadow is being activated? Every emotion, even the dense ones, carries information about where your psyche is still holding fragmentation, where integration is needed. When you can greet even fear or rage with this kind of compassionate inquiry, the entire energetic dynamic shifts. You're no longer at war with yourself, which means you're not hemorrhaging energy through internal resistance. And here's the practice that changes everything. Conscious breathing combined with what Jung called active imagination. Your breath bridges body and consciousness. When you breathe deeply and deliberately while feeling a dense emotion, you're giving that trapped psychological energy permission to move through you and reveal its message instead of staying stuck and creating symptoms. Simultaneously, you engage with the emotion as if it were a character in a dream, asking it what it wants, what it's trying to show you, allowing images and insights to emerge from the unconscious. There's one more piece to this puzzle that makes all the difference. Nothing lasts forever. Not the ecstasy, not the despair, not the fear, not the excitement. Everything is temporary. Everything is in constant motion. Jung understood this principle deeply through his study of the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. When you remember impermanence in those difficult moments, when you recognize that you are not the temporary weather pattern of emotion moving through the sky of your awareness, you gain access to patience and self-compassion that themselves operate at higher frequencies. You can feel the fear without becoming a victim to it. You can experience anger without letting it dictate your actions. You move through the emotion with full consciousness, and in doing so, you transmute it, integrate it, and emerge with greater wholeness. But here's the hidden truth that ties everything together. None of this works unless you actually practice it. Jung was clear about this. Knowledge without application is just entertainment. Information that decorates your mind but never touches your lived experience. The transformation you're seeking happens in those small daily choices, those moments when you catch yourself about to react automatically from an unconscious complex, and instead you pause, you breathe, you ask yourself, what's really being triggered here? What part of my shadow is activated? What's the more integrated response? Every single time you make that conscious choice, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're integrating previously rejected material. You're expanding the bandwidth of consciousness you can hold. You're raising your baseline vibrational frequency in a way that's permanent, not temporary. So here we are at the end of this journey together. And if you've made it this far, I want you to know that says something important about you. Most people would have turned away after the first minute, looking for a quick fix or an easy answer, some technique they could apply without doing the deeper psychological work. But you stayed because you recognized that real transformation requires depth, understanding, and a willingness to look at things from angles you may never have considered before. That matters more than you know. We need more spaces where people are willing to dive deeper, to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and psychological insight, to do the work of integration rather than simply painting over fragmentation with positive thinking. This isn't about entertainment. It's about genuine evolution of consciousness. Jung's work on synchronicity and the collective unconscious opens doorways most people never even realize exist. Perhaps we'll explore how shadow work specifically accelerates vibrational alignment in ways that transcend ordinary manifestation. That would be the natural next step from where we are right now, the bridge between understanding these principles and embodying them so completely that reality has no choice but to